Welcome to the official podcast of Joey's Song. You know, at Joey's Song, we have one mission: raise as much money as we can so that research into finding treatments and cures for epilepsy can get the funding it needs. We would love your support. If you can subscribe and leave a review of this podcast, it will help more than you could ever know. If you have a couple extra mouse clicks left in you, go to YouTube and our YouTube channel, Joey's Song, and subscribe. There. In less than 2 minutes, with a couple of mouse clicks, you will have made it easier for others to find us and help spread the word. Now, if you want to do a bit more, head over to joeysong.org, consider buying a show ticket or some merch, or even making a donation. Thanks. You know, we'll beat this disease, and together we'll have some fun doing it as well. Join us. All right, let's do this. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Liner Notes. I am Mike Gamal, Joey's Song, and the fellow over there with the Code Zero Radio logo behind him is
Andy McNamara.
So we're trying to find topics that we probably know a little too much about for the average human, right, Andy? Isn't that kind of the goal of Liner Notes?
It is, to get a little bit further in the weeds than the average person would normally want to go.
Yeah, that if we were at a bar, they'd get up and excuse themselves and never come back, right? Isn't that
But we would sit there all night until they kicked us out.
Damn straight. So there is nothing more, well, there are a few things more divisive, but I think this is a good one when we get into the topics of biographical stories about musicians, right? Because there's always 5 different angles. And while documentaries are great, and we can certainly talk about those as well when we talk today, the biopic is one that always causes great consternation because it depends on who's the executive producer, whose axe is being groaned, whatever it's being done, and I'm sure we'll talk about that too, because that can make a huge difference in what scenes are put in, who says what, and all that kind of stuff. So we chose today to talk about biopics. You picked the topic. Why is it of interest to you?
I really like biopics. Although if you see a really bad biopic, I'm kind of conflicted on my overall feelings on them. Growing up, biopics introduced me to like Richie Valens.
Yeah.
When I still think of Richie Valens, I think of Lou Diamond Phillips.
Right.
I think that's how Richie Valens actually looks, but I'm actually thinking of Lou Diamond Phillips because I saw that movie so many times growing up. But I like the fact that a biopic can breathe new life into a artist that perhaps from the 50s or 60s, make them look fresh and exciting. But then you go into the realm if they fictionize it too much, or if they take liberties. It's kind of, if you're kind of talking about people that are hardcore fans that take offense at inaccuracies versus the common person that is just maybe finding out or discovering an artist through these biopics.
Yeah, and it really doesn't matter to the common person whether that's in order or whether the evil agent is an amalgam of 3 other people or, that kind of stuff. They just, as long as it's, I don't want to say accurate, but the flow's right and you get to the end of it and the story's been delivered, I think most people are fine with that. But if you get, somebody that is so I grew up, when I was young, Queen was my band, and I still follow them very closely, even though Freddie's been dead for 30 plus years now. And so I'm one of those guys that can sit down, and we'll probably talk about Bohemian Rhapsody, that biopic, and point to every little thing that's wrong. But so that's the one side of it. The other thing that I catch myself doing, and it's not just music biopics, it's any biopics, is I spend all my time looking to see how much it looks exactly like whatever it is, right? And that's where not being an obsessive or not knowing the story, and I made some notes about some biopics that I know I like because I learned a lot from them. I couldn't tell you how accurate they are, those I just watch because, oh, fascinating story, right? And so a lot of, I think, your impression of a biopic depends on how much you knew before, how obsessed you are with the artist, and how much you really care about it, is because we've talked about this before. Music is very personal, right? And I mean, if you watch a biopic about not a music thing, I don't pick anybody else that you don't care about. You watch it to be entertained and that's it. But when it's something that means something to you, so I think there's a lot of things you can step in a biopic. Yeah. So
This is love the fact you brought up Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody, because I've got a similar experience more than likely with that Elvis movie that came
yep.
out a few years ago with was it Austin Butler? I
Yeah,
don't remember.
Somebody that see, I'm at the age now where I don't know the Saturday Night Live hosts, so I put them all in that category. Oh, my wife does know all those people. He was one of those who came on. I go, who the, he's okay, got it. He's the Elvis guy. And I'm sure he's done 3 other things that have made him famous, but yeah, I'm at that point. So.
What did you think the Queen Bohemian Rhapsody got right? What do you think it got wrong? From a diehard fan perspective.
Okay. The people cast in all 4 roles. The John Deacon role is a difficult one because most people, even if you're a Queen obsessive, you heard John talk 3 times, right? Because that wasn't his thing. The guy that played Brian May was spectacular, both in voice and mannerisms, and so were Roger Taylor. And I thought Rami did a great job with probably one of the most videoed and photographed and studied people. I mean, nobody was going to win at that. And if you know the story, there were multiple other actors that were originally cast in it and cast aside. I know Sacha Baron Cohen was in it at one point, and there were a couple other. I don't think anybody could have won at that, and I think Rami probably did as well as you can. So I thought that part was right. I thought the Live Aid sequence was spectacular, right? Because we've all seen that a million times. And the rest of it was just big and cartoony enough. It fit a band like Queen. To me, the camp, the over-the-topedness was what appealed to me as a 14-year-old putting on, sheer heart attack for the first time. Just all of it. I really appealed to me, and it still does to this day. I'm serious about my music, but I'm not that serious where I can't enjoy, high camp. So I think they got all of that stuff right. The timeline was all messed up. They amalgamated a whole bunch of characters, and the Live Aid and the I've Got AIDS and all that stuff was out of a timeline. So those are the kind of combinations of what they got right and wrong. Now, but you have to remember, Roger and Brian got to tell the story. So it was certainly everything you ever read, Fred was certainly partying on the hard end, and it's not hard to believe that but it's hard to, they really made it seem like a lot of it fell on his shoulders, that that Brian and Roger were spending all their time reacting to Fred and his foibles, and which is maybe true, but to the non-Queen fan who only likes that Bite the Dust song or that Under Pressure song, you did walk away with a good feeling of the band, and I think that's the best you can hope for with the biopic. What did you think?
I thought Bohemian Rhapsody was really good. You mentioned the Live Aid, and that was probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie because it kind of gives you a different view, almost stuff, and it was impressive how they recreated a lot of that stuff.
Oh, man, down to the nth detail. Yeah.
Yeah. What you mentioned earlier about comparing it, if you're a fan, to the original, I was trying to find side-by-side pictures and find, what little things were a little bit off or what looked different. But it was pretty mind-blowing knowing that a lot of the fans are probably somehow CGI created or, it looked great. I loved the music. I did start searching around to find all the inaccuracies afterwards and see what was real and what was made up or what was dramatized a little bit. But to your point, the common fan, I guess they do need to make it go fast and make sense,
right?
And keep their interest. But that the Elvis movie, going in and watching that, I went with my mom and sister, and of course, just like when you're watching Bohemian Rhapsody, like hearing how they condense stuff,
yep,
how they are portraying him, how they're really laying on his influences from the black rhythm and blues, like BB
Yep.
King, and there's some made up hangs in there, and some other
Yes.
stuff to reinforce that. And the 60th comeback special, that whole thing was, jumbled up and dramatized, and how Elvis is bucking the Colonel and making this big move. And I kind of walked out of there dazzled by some of the effects and stuff in there, and being able to see upstairs in Graceland how they recreated his bedroom and all that. But
Yep.
ultimately, I was just complaining, pissing and moaning about
And
how they got wrong or that got that wrong.
And I think that's where we've got to realize that they don't make those movies for you and I.
Yeah.
They because if the obsessive fans go, it's going to be a small indie movie at the Picture Box on Lincoln Avenue in Chicago and not playing on, mega screens. It's for everybody else and because I made a list. One of the things I made when I was preparing for this was trying to figure out why I liked certain ones over others, because I'm not a big movie guy. I don't sit and go, oh, that was an interesting shot or any of that stuff. And I realized some of the ones that really stuck with me are because I didn't know the story and I learned a lot about it. Right. Some like Coal Miner's Daughter. I didn't know a lot about Loretta Lynn before that. I mean, I knew of her, but I didn't know the story. I don't know if there's an accuracy meter, whether that's on the same level as Queen and Elvis, or whether it's, yeah, and I don't know, but it doesn't matter. I walked away going, man, she went through some stuff, and came out the other end victorious
I
so
haven't seen that one
that,
yet, so I'm gonna have to add that to my
yeah,
list.
the other one was Sid and Nancy, Sid Vicious and Nancy Spurgeon from Sid from Sex Pistols. I have no idea whether it was accurate or not, but they made it gritty enough, and they weren't trying to sugarcoat it. They weren't trying to save anybody's reputation. Again, I don't know whether it's 50% accurate or 90% or 3% accurate, but I kind of realized that that's also part of it. The ones that I had strong comments about were like the door, there's a Doors one, the one with Val
From
Kilmer, there's a Beach Boys one, there's a Hendrix. I saw the Doors. I haven't seen the other two, but I know I have Beach Boyed myself to death. I have Hendrixed myself to death, that I will go into it the same way you went into Elvis and I went into Bo Rap, going, all right, that's wrong. Nope, he never did that. Nope, that's fiction, and that's not how you should do it. So I went through a list, and not to do the punchline at the very end, but I listed as my favorite was Amadeus, because I wasn't around when Mozart was doing that. I don't know how much. Did you ever see Amadeus?
I have not.
Oh, yeah. So it's a story. It's Mozart's life story, and it's based around this supposed, oh, how would you say it? One-way rivalry with Salieri, another composer, and it's an unfair fight. It's like taking on Michael Jordan. Any of us taking on Michael Jordan in a one-on-one. You could be a hell of a ball player. You're not going to win that. And so and I'm sure the inaccuracies abound, but I knew nothing about it, right? And it's a fantastic movie. I don't know how good of a biopic it is, and I guess maybe that's really what we're coming down to, is what's a good movie versus what's a good biopic. I don't know.
And did you go searching for more information after you watched the movie?
I don't know if yeah, probably. I at least tried to like something more than three chords and a bridge. I was unsuccessful. I'm still not very good at listening to classical music, but really interesting. And when you realize that, and they make Amadeus look not bad, but he's childish and crude, and which you don't think of these great class. He wrote the most beautiful music ever, and he's chasing women around the palace and grabbing things he's not supposed to grab and all that. So, that maybe that's the criteria of, are you making a good movie, or are you making an accurate biopic, and does it really matter either way? I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess I'm on a more modern scale. When I saw Straight Outta Compton, I didn't know a whole lot about
Yeah.
how, you know, uh, those guys, Dre and Ice
Yep.
Cube, got together, and then so that I found that interesting, and probably much the same way, where I was just watching a movie which was entertaining, and I knew some of the songs and
Yeah.
roughly the people, and after it got over, I thought, wow, that was really good.
I think probably where we should land on all this is, if the people that are portrayed in it don't have a problem with it, then we shouldn't either. You know what I mean? It's like, because like I said, I know everything that was wrong in Bohemian Rhapsody, and that's my problem, for not enjoying it, because it was really well done. It won all sorts of awards, I think, and so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
I suppose when those come out too, like Freddie Mercury, not around, like you
Right.
mentioned, but they are kind of they're solidifying their pull on the new people and keeping the legacy
Right.
of the band alive. And it's probably a lot of back and forth with the estates. If it's with the
Yeah.
estates, of course, you can go rogue and make a kind
Right.
of a bad documentary, but
Well, and I think too, to focus both on the Elvis and the Queen ones, since those are the ones we have experience with the most, even if it was inaccurate, knowing, like Freddie Mercury said, I don't care what you do with my music and image after I'm dead, as long as it's not boring, darling. That was his famous quote, right? So I don't believe he would have a problem with how he was portrayed. You know what I mean? Even if it wasn't completely accurate, and even if the other two ended up looking more like angels, he had an opinion. Now there's things we say in public and there's things we think in private, right? That aren't always the same. But I don't. There was nothing that I saw that and again, I'm not the official Queen biographer, or I've never met any of those guys, but there's nothing that I saw that went, that would have pissed Fred off if he had seen that, because everything about it was over the top and flamboyant, and that's who he was and who in every interview said he was and wanted to be. So, I don't know.
you mentioned the Doors movie. Did you think Val Kilmer looked exactly like
I
Jim
thought
Morrison?
that was one where they got a lot of it right and had the whole Lizard King move. And I hope people aren't watching this. I hope they're just listening, because I just tried it. But yeah, I thought so. I thought so.
Some of
But
these they get it pretty good, and then others they're a little
right.
off the mark. The Elvis one I was a little judgmental on. People were talking about how they thought he did a great job, and he did. The mannerisms were good, but
Yep.
to me, the Vegas Elvis just drove me nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think over time too, I remember Joaquin Phoenix with Walk the Line. People were talking about how much he looked like Johnny Cash, but if I look at pictures now, I don't think he looks as
Yeah.
much like him as I did when the movie came out.
You make an interesting point. I wonder what's more important, physical mimicry or the moves. Do they move like the person? And maybe that can make up for those things that aren't necessarily there. The Johnny, again, I won't do the Elvis moves or the Johnny Cash moves, but there's so many elements to, like, if you're portraying a historical figure, most people aren't going to know whether you got Churchill right or not, right? But they're going to
Right.
know if you sounded like Elvis, if you moved like Elvis, and if you looked like Elvis. Because even if he was gone, so when were you born?
78. He was
So
gone
he
when
was
I was
gone.
born.
Yeah, I remember where I was. I was driving in my car down Main Street in Sun Prairie in my Pontiac. God damn it, it was a blue Pontiac, when I heard it on the radio that he was dead. Anyway, um, we've all seen or heard those people a million times, so you can judge that. Whereas if, I don't think they got Robert McNamara exactly right in the JFK movie, nobody's going to be slamming on that. And the people that aren't going to see the movie anyway. So I'm wondering how mannerisms are as big a deal, I think, and cadence, if you've heard somebody talk. It's which once again goes to the complexity of what a Rami Malek or this Austin, I don't know his last name, guy did, because those are such well-known and almost cliched characters that we've all seen 1,000 times. So
Yep.
interesting.
We should take a break.
We should, because I'm just going to keep talking about Bohemian Rhapsody, and that's not going to work. But I am going to take one thing, and there is already a Joey song, Connection, in one of the movies you mentioned. So everybody's got to stick around to hear what that one is. That's a tease. I'm like a radio guy, Andy. We'll be right
Don't go
back,
anywhere.
but stick around. All right, everybody, we are back. I went and got my popcorn, some butter on top of my popcorn, and got my 39-ounce Slurpee refilled. Andy, what did you do on the intermission here?
You
There you
got
go.
this
Oh,
LaCroix?
LaCroix. Wow, you're doing healthy. I just had a whole box of Raisinets. That's not good at all. So let's tie up some loose ends before we go on to kind of our next topic around biopics and just some of the other things you were just mentioning, and there's a little bit of a Wisconsin tie in with it, the Song Sung Blue comparison. Talk more about that.
Watched Song Sung Blue, which of course had Kate Hudson and forgetting names, that other guy, Hugh Jackman.
Yeah,
Hugh Jackman.
the Aussie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was really good. And then it got me interested to see the original. So I went and watched the original, which the movie was based off of. A lot of it was similar, but it didn't seem as exciting. It was actually really hard to get through the original because Hollywooded it up and made it a lot more appealing to people I didn't know. And talking about how people looked again, that Eddie Vedder's in there when, a tie-in with Summerfest in the mid 90s. And of course I went and pulled up pictures and video of that Pearl Jam concert and realized they had the Eddie Vedder not wearing the same t-shirt. And anyways,
yeah, I get you.
But if there was a biopic based on Joey's song, Mike, who would you want? Like, how would you want to see the arc go? Would you want to be involved with that, or would you want to not be involved at all with how the flow of that biopic went?
That's a hell of a question. I think what I would like is final say more than being involved in the creative, because
would you be a stickler for details?
No,
it's like as far as how the beginning and all that.
Because I've over the 15 years of doing Joey's song, I've done a bazillion interviews, and I already know that I've amalgamated in my stories that I've got my 4 or 5 go-to stories, and I know that in order to make them interesting and not have to take 39 minutes to explain A or B, that you do a lot of that. So I understand that, right? So I could, I've got my story about how Butch and I decided to invite guests. It's mostly true, and so I would not be a stickler for details. Certainly not. I would not be about how we built it. Now, I would, if the artists were being represented, I would want to make sure that, that thing. But I don't think I necessarily would. I think that as long, the most important, well, besides the epilepsy part of it, let's put the charity aside, the show side of it, the most important thing to me is the magic and the talent level of what those people do on that stage with the runway that we give them. As long as that's accurate, right? And we really literally have people going through charts 20 minutes before the show starts, and people can see, that would be important to me. I would want to make sure that that's right, that it doesn't come across as some slick, or that we've got people throwing diva moments backstage and I shan't do this, or, because no. As long as that's
you would need some drama there, though. At the end, you would need some drama that gets fixed.
Oh, there has been a few. There has been a few, and someday the stories will come out. That's a really great question. I think the most important part of any, if a biopic was done on it, would be how the shows are put together from Butch's the artistic standpoint, the work that Jay Moran used to do in trying to craft songs that are engaging and a show that's engaging but fun. Yeah, that's the real story of it. And then the extra that can run afterwards is the fundraising side of it and the medical side of it, which still needs to be told, but that would just be for the nerds.
I would enjoy that very much.
Yeah. But then my question for you is, you now know a lot of the Joey song people. So let me ask you, and this is going to be some tough ones, who would play Butch Vig?
That is a tough one.
Yeah.
Would have to be somebody cool.
Yeah.
Of course, Butch has that look. He's got
there's a
mustache, the shoulder length hair, the inquisitive look on his face through his glasses. Oh man, that is a tough one.
So remember, you can use makeup. So I think, and this is going to sound like a total disconnect, I think Bryan Cranston could play Butch. He would be
would be a good one.
Think about him more from the meth show, Breaking Bad, right? His ability to play that kind of intensity to it, because there's an intensity to Butch when he's doing his music thing, right? And so with the right wig and the mustache and everything, I think somebody like a Bryan Cranston would be phenomenal at teasing out those wonderful elements of our beloved Butch Vig.
I'm completely on board with that.
All right. All right.
He's able to put in what I like about Cranston is he's not afraid to put in pauses. He doesn't
Oh
hurry
God, he's great.
along.
He's phenomenal.
And I think that would be perfect for Butch because he's also got the same demeanor as far as thoughtful pausing and thinking before he speaks and all of that.
Now I got a tough one for you. Gail Greenwood. Who would play? I mean, that would be some specific casting for Gail.
It might not be a perfect fit, but Kate Hudson, the energy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
She's got a lot of charisma, both Kate Hudson and Gail Greenwood. Gail, of course, I don't know if she has any days where she feels like mopey, or she always just seems ready to go and energetic.
Yeah. Well, the other one that Kate would be a good one for would be Kay Hanley, right? Because that
should be a good one for Kay too.
That's a good one for Kay. I would not have thought of that, but when you said Kate Hudson, I went. But see, this gets back to what we were talking about in the first segment of the show. It's important to capture their essence as much as it is to he looks just like him, because you could find, Chris Kattan could look, I don't know, I'm picking a name from Saturday Night Live, could look like Butch, but that doesn't mean, he's got to get those. And that's why I think for these, at least characters that mean a lot to us, like the folks we've just mentioned you want to make sure that they capture their essence, as much as anything else, right? Because then you feel like, okay, they're being portrayed accurately. I guess, I don't know. Here's one I don't have an answer to. Most of these I had an answer in my head before I ask it. Freedy Johnston. Who could play Freedy Johnston? That's one I don't have, and I know, and maybe that's one where we can ask the folks that are listening, if you want to comment on the Joey Song Podcast Facebook page or send a note in on that for any of these. It doesn't have to be the other ones, because I did want to do one for Frank Anderson, but I realized the Undertaker from WWE was already taken, so we don't have to. We don't have to do that with our beloved Frank. That would be fun. That would actually be a fun thing to do, is cast the Joey Song biopic. That would
be great.
That would be a contest.
This probably wouldn't make Frank happy, but I would love to see Billy Corgan play Frank.
Oh,
because the height, they're both the same height.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same hairstyle.
Yeah. And they both have the same amount of smiles on stage. So, and we love you, Frank. Don't take that the wrong way. We love you, Frank. But yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. And, now we've got so many over the last couple of years, new Joey Song guys that I don't know. So I'm going to take us off course for a second, but so many of these new folks that we brought in, like Max Collins or Kurt Smith, they don't fit their onstage persona. They're all just really nice. Like Max Collins, and I love you too, Max. If I'd seen him coming down the street, I'd get on the other side of the street, right? He's a big dude, tattoos, and, got kind of.
I think he was wearing like camouflage pants one of the days.
Yeah, the whole bit. He's the sweetest guy ever. And Kurt Smith, who, this very staid British, classy kind of guy. He and I we're both Manchester United fans. We were texting today because they let us down. He's like this passionate, I won't say swearing, but, he lets his feelings be known about our beloved Red Devils. I would have never guessed that in a million years, right? So that's the other part when we talk about capturing someone's essence. Are you capturing their professional essence or their personal essence? Because, those would be mismatches. Oh, Frank, if you watched Frank sit behind the pedal steel, you would not know what a gentle soul he really is, right? With the big Undertaker hat and the black and the, menacing. And he's just a gentle, gentle soul. So that's really, to me, that's really interesting. So.
Do you think that they're ever going to do a biopic on Butch Vig?
I don't know, but
based
they
on
will
that? Do
do
you think
not
there'd
a
be a
biopic, but a documentary. I mean, there've been so many bits and pieces already done,
yeah,
and it's pretty well documented. Just as an adjunct, right? That you do the Nevermind story, you interview Butch, right?
yeah.
The Smart Studio story, but there may be an autobiography coming out from Mr. Vig soon. There may, just may. Okay, there is. I don't, nobody listens to this, so I don't know. He's not going to kill me for spilling it. He's been working on it. So who knows? I mean, and it's not a soup to nuts. It's a very specific set of years. So I can tell you that he and I were talking about that the other day, and they're fascinating years. They're the years everybody kind of, well, we'll just leave it
He's
at that.
he'll make his character will make an appearance, and they're bound to do one about Nirvana at some point.
Right.
And
Right. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
there's so many bands that he's been involved with that he could just show up as a character in there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
a biopic I'd love to see would be on the Bangles. I
Yeah.
feel like there should be a Bangles biopic. I don't know if they'll ever make one, but I feel
Yeah.
like that would be great for getting the Bangles back in front of people.
Yeah.
And we'll
So
talk
there,
about it a different time. I feel like they're a Hall of Fame
yeah.
miss
Yeah.
right
That,
now as far as they
yeah.
should be opinion, but
Yeah, I don't, and we love the Go-Go's too, but I don't understand how one is a slam dunk and another one doesn't get talked about. Because not that they're the same, you don't say, oh, all girl groups. They went at it from very different roots, right? The Go-Go's had the LA punk scene, and the Bangles had the Paisley underground scene, which were two different scenes, and they both came up. Yeah, I think so too. But there is a Bangles doc coming too. So, but I would guess that a biopic. So I guess I'll flip the question back. Can the biopic go with a band where everybody's still around but isn't playing together anymore? Because, everybody sit down from about sometimes bands don't last a long time because personality conflicts happen. And I think there's probably, if there's four members of the band, there's four sides to every story, right?
yeah, and I think that that could probably hinder something from getting made. But that Doors one from the
Yeah.
first part of the conversation, I know Raymond Zarek complained that I think or maybe it was Robbie Densmore complained that Raymond Zarek or some of the bandmates said some stuff that wasn't true and were like going behind. I think it was Raymond Zarek was
Yeah.
the guilty party.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a good question, and can they be all be around?
But see, that gets back to how it's almost like we know what we're doing here, Andy. This gets back to how we started this whole thing is it's what's the purpose of the biopic, right? Because you can you can tell the same story without it being a biopic and being approved, right? You and I could do a documentary on any band we wanted to do with public available footage, and we just have to get stuff cleared. So we can tell it any way we want to. And the question is, do you need a biopic to do that? Or is your documentary any good? Because we've all watched documentaries, unauthorized ones, where the band doesn't appear in it. You want those
Music's
interviews.
generic.
Yeah, right. With all the footage we've all seen, and they show it like three times over the hour and a half with a different voiceover, right? I'm sure you and I have watched our share of all those. So there's got to be some happy medium between a bland biopic and a killer documentary plus a non-authorized documentary that can make you feel like you understand those people, what they did, what they went through better. Because to me, that's a really important part of all this is to understand the humans that created this art that's just so important to all of us, right?
Yeah. And then there's a really good documentary about Big Star. And then Big Star would be another one that I
Oh,
think
yeah,
a
yeah,
biopic would be interesting because of the just the personalities. There's personality there and the story of not playing for a long time and then getting back together. Of course, Jody Stevens,
yep,
he's been at Joey's song a couple times and
yep.
wow, always so awesome to see him up there
Oh,
performing 13 or any of those Big Star songs.
right. Yeah. Again, I think I think I've named 47 people as the nicest person in rock and roll, but Jody's right up there. Yeah. The Big Star doc he was involved in. So, if you know Jody, as you and I both do, he's fine with warts and all, which I think is why that was so interesting to watch, right? Because
Yeah.
Alex was anything far from perfect. And talk about somebody that battled some demons, right? That was certainly Alex Chilton, and get John to talk about, and John Auer to talk about that comeback record. It's a really fascinating story.
You had a good conversation with John about it on one of the past podcasts that people should go dig up, and it's very interesting.
There's also and we're running up against the clock here, but let's end on this Big Star thing. There is a podcast called The History of Rock in 500 Songs, and it is the greatest thing ever done on music. If you have not listened to it, you should listen to it. You should do the Patreon so you can get the free. He does Patreon stuff. He did most of the episodes are an hour to an hour and a half, and then he's supposed to do these small. He did an hour and a half special episode just on Big Star, and I forwarded on to Jody. But this dude, his name is Andrew Hickey, and he's a British journalist. He researches these things down to the 11th hour, and he'll take you 30 years to get to Alex Chilton from Blind Lemon Jefferson, and it's beautiful. But my point is, if you combine that podcast that he did on Big Star, actually, technically he did it on the Box Tops, The Letter, but he just picks a song, but it's really the Big Star. It's the Alex Chilton story. You do that and you combine that with the doc that you were talking about. Fascinating. And talk about a musician's band. I mean, everybody trust me, folks, if you're listening, half the bands you love were influenced by Big Star, right? Whether it's REM.
You hear a lot of Big Star songs at Joey's song they all want to play them.
Well, the first year, that's funny. See, I keep saying we're going to wrap things up, but you keep prompting me. You're evil. The first year when John and Jody came for the first time and they did a mini Big Star set, right? They did 13 and they did El Goodo and they did September, and I don't know what, and then it was the next year they did In the Street. But that first year, we didn't quite have our rehearsal schedule the way it needed to be. So they basically ran through their song. And when the show came and they started playing September Girls, if you watch the video, Debbie Peterson comes running out, Vicky comes running out, Kay comes running out, to sing background vocals, because everybody's band at some point did September Girls. I mean, the Bangles recorded it. It was on their Perfect Different Light record. It's a glorious version of it. And that's everybody. So if you're listening to this and you don't know what the hell we're talking about with Big Star, do those two things. And then after that, get in your car and drive to Memphis and do the tour of Ardent Studios, because if you're lucky, Jody himself will be there and he will give you the tour and he will show you where Stevie Wonder recorded and the Stones recorded and Stevie Ray Vaughan recorded and Cheap Trick recorded. And he'll point across the street to where the Big Star grocery store was. It's just.
Did you get that tour, Mike?
I did. Sam and I got it.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, Sam and I got it. So anyway, I love this. We should do this more often, Andy.
We should.
All right. We'll be hanging out in the street. All right, folks, it's another edition of Liner Notes. We had 3 more topics we were going to get to. We're trying to keep these to 30 to 45 minutes and already failing miserably, but we'll keep trying. So if you are listening to this and want to hear 2 dorks talk about any other topic, you can find us on Facebook at the Code Zero radio site and/or Joey Song, and send it in. And odds are we'll probably find 45 minutes of blather to put around it, right?
Easily.
Andy McNamara, thanks, everybody. It's Joey Song. Talk to you all very soon. Hey, thanks for sticking around all the way to the end of the podcast. A quick reminder, if you can give us a follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast provider and write a short review, it will really help us out. If you can head over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel over there, that's another big help. These simple acts make it easier for others to find us. And of course, head over to joeysong.org to join our community and stay up to date on all the news. Thanks, and we'll talk again real soon.
Learn more about Joey Song by visiting joeysong.org. The theme music was composed by Sam Gamal, and Joey Song is a federally registered 501c3 charity. Thanks for listening.